Summer nights are for camping, right? That's what my friends and I thought when we planned a trip to Lake Hollow, a remote spot in the Pennsylvania wilderness, in July 2019. I'm Jake, and I was 25, fresh out of college and craving one last adventure before adult life kicked in. My buddies, Matt and Tyler, were game, so we packed our tents, some beers, and headed out. Lake Hollow was beautiful but isolated. No cell service, no rangers, just a dirt trail leading to a clearing by the water. We got there at dusk, the sky a deep purple, the air buzzing with cicadas. We set up camp, built a fire, and cracked open the beers. Matt was telling some cheesy ghost story about a drowned girl haunting the lake, but we were too buzzed to care. Around midnight, we heard it, a splash, loud and deliberate, coming from the lake. We froze, our laughter dying. Probably a fish, Tyler said, but his voice wavered. I grabbed a flashlight and shone it across the water. The surface was still, like glass. No ripples, no nothing. "Let's just go to bed," Matt said, tossing his beer can into the fire. We doused the flames and crawled into our tents, but I couldn't sleep. The air felt wrong, too heavy, like a storm was coming. Around 2 a.m. I heard it again, another splash, closer this time. I unzipped my tent and peeked out. The lake was dark, but something caught my eye, a faint glow moving under the water. "Guys," I hissed, shaking Matt and Tyler awake. They grumbled but followed me outside. The glow was still there, drifting toward the shore. It wasn't a fish or a reflection. It was deliberate, like something was swimming down there, carrying a light. "Dude, that's not normal," Tyler whispered. Matt, the skeptic, suggested it was a glow stick or some prank. But then the glow stopped, right at the edge of the water, and something emerged. It was a figure dripping wet, its hair plastered to its face. It wore what looked like an old dress, tattered and gray. It didn't move like a person. It glided, its feet barely touching the ground. In its hand was a glowing orb, pulsing faintly. We didn't wait to see more. We bolted for the car, grabbing only our phones and keys. The engine roared to life, and we tore down the dirt trail, branches scraping the sides. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that thing chasing us. We didn't stop until we hit a 24-hour diner, 30 miles away. The waitress, an older woman named Dot, overheard us talking and asked what happened. When we mentioned Lake Hollow, her face went white. "You saw her, didn't you?" she said. She told us the story. In the 1950s, a girl named Abigail drowned in the lake during a church retreat. Her body was never found, but campers started seeing her, always at night, holding a glowing light. Some said she was looking for her family. Others said she was luring people into the water to join her. We laughed it off as a local legend, but Dot wasn't joking. "You're lucky you left," she said. "Last summer, a couple went missing out there. Their tent was found by the shore soaked, like something dragged it into the lake." We drove home at dawn, shaken but alive. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, I found something in my backpack. A small, smooth stone, wet to the touch with a faint glow. I threw it into a river, but sometimes at night, I hear splashing outside my apartment. And last night I saw it, a glow flickering just beyond my window. If you're camping at Lake Hollow on a summer night, don't go near the water, because whatever's down there, it doesn't stay in the lake. Summer nights in suburban Ohio are supposed to be peaceful. Crickets chirping, stars overhead, maybe a bonfire with friends. That's what I thought when I moved into my new house in 2020. I'm Sarah, 29, and I just landed a teaching job in a small town called Willow Creek. The house was a steal, a cute two-bedroom with a big backyard, perfect for hosting. My first week there, I decided to throw a little get-together to meet the neighbors. That's when things started to go wrong. It was a Friday night in July, the air thick with the smell of cut grass and charcoal. I'd set up a fire pit in the backyard surrounded by lawn chairs. About a dozen people showed up, neighbors, a few coworkers, even the mailman, Greg, who brought his own beer. Everyone was laughing, swapping stories, and roasting marshmallows. The fire pit crackled, casting a warm glow over the group. Around 10 p.m., my next-door neighbor, Linda, an older woman with a sharp tongue, pulled me aside. "You sure about that fire pit?" she asked, her eyes flicking to the flames. I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then said, "This house, it's got history. The previous owners, the Millers, they had a fire pit too, use it all the time. Then one night something happened. They stopped using it, moved out not long after." I pressed her for details, but she just shook her head and said, "Ask around. People don't like talking about it." Then she went back to her wine. I brushed it off as small-town gossip. The party went on, and by midnight, everyone had left except my coworker, Jess. We were cleaning up when she pointed at the fire pit. Sarah, did you put that out?" The flames were low but still burning, which was weird. I doused it with water an hour ago. I grabbed the hose and sprayed it again, watching the embers hiss and die. "Probably just a hot spot," I said, but my skin prickled. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Around 2 a.m. I heard a sound from the backyard, a faint crackling, like a fire. I grabbed my phone and crept to the window. The fire pit was glowing. Not just embers, but full-on flames leaping high. My heart pounded. I'd put it out. I knew I had. I called Jess, who told me to stay inside and lock the doors. But I couldn't just sit there. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside, the grass damp under my bare feet. The fire pit was roaring now, the heat hitting me from 10 feet away. And then I saw it. In the flames, there was a shape. It looked like a person hunched over, its outline flickering. I screamed, dropping the flashlight. The shape vanished, and the fire died instantly, leaving only ash. I ran back inside, locking every door and window. The next morning, I called Linda. She came over, her face grim. "I warned you," she said. She told me the Miller story. Apparently, they'd been obsessed with their fire pit, hosting parties every weekend. But one night, their teenage son, Caleb, disappeared. They found him the next day, burned to death in the fire pit. The police called it an accident, but the Millers swore Caleb had been sleepwalking, drawn to the fire somehow. After that, they kept seeing things in the flames, shapes, faces. They moved out within a month. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was piling up. Over the next week, the fire pit kept reigniting. I'd wake up to find it burning, no matter how much water or dirt I dumped on it. Worse, I started hearing whispers at night, like voices chanting just beyond the backyard. I stopped going outside after dark. Desperate, I contacted a local historian, Mr. Grayson, who knew Willow Creek's secrets. He came over, his face paling when he saw the fire pit. "This isn't just about the Millers," he said. "Your house is built on old land. Back in the 1700s, this was an execution site. They burned people here, witches they called them. The ground's cursed. That fire pit's like a beacon calling them back." I laughed, thinking he was nuts, but he wasn't smiling. He told me to dig up the fire pit and move it, break the connection. So I did. I rented a shovel and spent a day tearing it apart, hauling the stones to a dump. For a few days it worked. The backyard was quiet, and I could sleep again. But last night it started again. I woke up to that crackling sound, louder than ever. I looked out my window and my blood ran cold. The fire pit was back, not just the stones, but the exact same layout, like I'd never touched it. And in the flames, there were shapes, multiple this time, moving, reaching out. I'm writing this from a motel. I'm not going back to that house. If you're ever in Willow Creek and see a fire pit glowing on a summer night, don't get close. Because whatever's in those flames, it's not human. And it's hungry. It was a humid summer night in 2018, the kind where the air clings to your skin like a damp towel. My name's Ethan, and I was 22, driving home from a weekend camping trip in upstate New York with my buddy Connor. We'd spent 2 days fishing, grilling, and telling dumb ghost stories by the fire. Now it was time to head back to reality. My beat-up 2005 Honda Civic rattled along Route 17, a lonely two-lane road cutting through dense pine forests. It was around 11 p.m., and we hadn't seen another car for miles. The radio was static, so we were stuck with Connor's off-key humming to fill the silence. "Man, this road's creepy as hell," Connor said, peering out the window. The headlights barely pierced the thick darkness, and the trees loomed like silent giants. I laughed it off, telling him he'd watched too many horror movies. But honestly, the isolation was getting to me too. My phone had no signal, and the GPS had crapped out an hour ago. We were navigating by memory in a crumpled map Connor found in the glove box. About 20 minutes later, I noticed something flickering in the distance, just off the road. At first, I thought it was a firefly, but it was too steady, too deliberate. As we got closer, I saw it. An old-fashioned lantern, glowing faintly, sitting right in the middle of the asphalt. Its flame danced inside a rusted metal frame, casting eerie shadows on the road. "What the—" Connor leaned forward, squinting. "Who leaves a lantern out here?" I slowed the car to a crawl. The logical thing would have been to drive around it, but something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't supposed to be there. I stopped a few feet away, the headlights illuminating the lantern's chipped red paint. It looked ancient, like something from a museum. "Dude, just go around it," Connor said, his voice tight. I was about to when I noticed something else. Beyond the lantern, maybe 10 yards into the trees, there was another light, smaller, fainter, but definitely another lantern. And beyond that, another, a trail of them leading into the woods. "Okay, that's weird," I muttered. My stomach twisted. "You seen this?" Connor nodded, his eyes wide. "Yeah, let's not stick around to find out what's up with that." I agreed. I pressed the gas, swerving around the lantern. But as we passed it, I swear I heard something. A low, guttural hum, like someone chanting under their breath. I glanced at Connor, but he was staring straight ahead, pale as a ghost. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" he said too quickly, but I could tell he had. We drove in silence for another mile, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. Then Connor grabbed my arm. "Ethan, stop." I slammed on the brakes. "What?" He pointed to the side of the road. There, sitting in the gravel, was another lantern, identical to the first. Same red paint, same flickering flame. My heart sank. "That's not possible," I whispered. We hadn't turned around. There was no way it could be the same one. "Maybe it's a prank," Connor said, but he didn't sound convinced, like some locals messing with the drivers. I wanted to believe that, but the air felt heavier now, like the forest was watching us. I hit the gas again, determined to get the hell out of there. But a few minutes later, we saw it again. Another lantern. This time it was in the middle of the road, and the trail of lights leading into the woods was back. Only now, the lanterns in the trees were closer together, their glow brighter, almost beckoning. Okay, screw this, I said, my voice shaking. I floored it, swerving to avoid the lantern. The car fishtailed, gravel crunching under the tires. Connor was yelling at me to slow down, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get away. That's when the headlights caught something else. Up ahead, standing in the road, was a figure. It was tall, unnaturally thin, wearing what looked like a tattered coat. Its face, if it had one, was hidden in shadow. It didn't move. It just stood there holding another lantern. I screamed, slamming on the brakes. The car skidded, stopping inches from the figure. Connor was hyperventilating, muttering, "No, no, no." I fumbled with the gear shift, ready to reverse, but the figure tilted its head like it was studying us. Then slowly it raised the lantern higher. The light flared, blinding us. When my vision cleared, the figure was gone. The road was empty. No lantern, no nothing. Just darkness. "Drive, Ethan. Drive," Connor shouted. I didn't need to be told twice. I gunned it, the engine roaring. We drove for what felt like hours, the forest stretching on endlessly. My phone was still dead, and the map was useless. Panic clawed at my chest. Were we even on Route 17 anymore? Finally, we saw a gas station, its neon sign a beacon in the night. I pulled in, practically collapsing with relief. The clerk, an old guy with a gray beard, looked up as we stumbled inside, babbling about lanterns and a figure. He listened, his expression unreadable, then said, "You boys are lucky. Not everyone makes it past the lanterns." "What do you mean?" I asked, my mouth dry. He leaned closer, his voice low. "Folks around here don't talk about it, but Route 17's got a history. Back in the 1800s, a cult used to operate in those woods. They'd lure travelers with lanterns, lead them into the forest. No one ever saw them again. Some say they're still out there looking for new blood." Connor laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But the clerk's eyes were dead serious. He told us to stick to main roads and not stop until we were home. We didn't argue. The rest of the drive was uneventful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the trees. When we got back to my apartment, I checked the car. There on the hood was a single scorch mark, shaped like a lantern's base. I don't drive Route 17 anymore, and if you're ever out that way on a summer night, keep your eyes on the road, because if you see a lantern glowing in the dark, whatever you do, don't follow it.